What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Sunday, December 7th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:02 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Asia and from Latin America. So apparently recently Chinese fighter jets twice locked their fire control radars onto Japanese fighter jets over international waters near Okinawa, Japan. Now, Okinawa is where the U.S. has a major military base. Okay, so Chinese J-15 fighter jets locking onto Japanese fighter jets in international waters. That is huge breaking news. Also, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said that Russia urges the U.S. to refrain from sliding towards a conflict with Venezuela. Moscow stands with Caracas shoulder to shoulder. Wow. And we have some high priority planes airborne over the continental United States. We have a presidential Doomsday plane that went from D.C. to U.S. Strategic Command headquarters. Potentially it could be Trump or Hegseth or somebody very, very important. And maybe they're about to launch strikes on Venezuela or do some kind of land strikes in Latin America on the drug cartels. So they're moving somebody from the D.C. area to Stratcom headquarters on a Doomsday plane. Typically only the President and the Secretary of Defense are moved around with Doomsday planes. And also we have a nuclear war command and control plane up in the air, and we also have a reconnaissance plane up in the air over Indiana that is typically deployed to Europe. So pretty unusual activity today. And Trump shared a Fox News article claiming that a U.S. attack on Venezuela should serve as a warning to Vladimir Putin, and he shared this on his Truth Social account. So maybe that's what Trump is going for with this attack on Venezuela, is to make a statement to Putin and also to Xi Jinping that the U.S. is powerful and the U.S. will strike whenever we want. And the Turkish president had a phone call with the Venezuelan president Maduro. The Turkish president Erdogan told Maduro that Turkey is closely following developments in the region and believes that problems should be resolved through dialogue. He emphasized the importance of keeping communication channels open between the U.S. and Venezuela. So we know that Turkey is one of the countries that potentially could provide asylum to Maduro. But very interesting, Erdogan stressing that Maduro and the U.S. Continue to communicate. And U.S. pressure on Venezuela has prompted figures inside the Cuban regime to discreetly contact Washington, discussing what the region might look like without Maduro in power, according to two sources to Reuters. So the Cubans are now concerned, and Trump appears poised to follow through on earlier threats and may now be preparing to respond to Maduro with military force. After a 5-day port call on the island of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the USS Gerald R. Ford was seen departing Frenchman's Cove this morning to resume its ongoing deployment in the Caribbean Sea. So 5-day port call for the Gerald Ford in St. Thomas. So sounds like it was getting resupplied. And the Congress of Peru has approved a measure allowing U.S. military personnel to enter Peru with war-grade weapons. Interesting. And the Polish military has extended a no-fly zone along their entire eastern border through March 9th, 2026. And this is along the border of Belarus and Ukraine. So that is huge news. And the U.S. debt has reached an all-time high in October of $284.4 billion. This is the worst October in history. Okay, so our economy is not doing so good. And we have a sign that Russia may be preparing for another war or possibly another big push in Ukraine. Apparently, new migration checkpoints have been set up in 12 major Russian cities, including Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, and Kazan, to screen passengers arriving from abroad. Anyone who is not registered for military service may receive a summons at the gate. Even transit passengers or short-term visitors cannot leave Russia without checking their documents at a military registration office with uncertain consequences. The Kremlin also plans to distribute summons at railway stations, seaports, and land border crossings. The increased raids on conscripts may signal preparations for potential aggression against EU countries. So if you remember, Russia did the same thing in the beginning of the Ukraine war. They were checking all Russians who were leaving Russia. They were checking to make sure that they were registered for conscription, okay? And Russia and China held some kind of joint anti-missile drill in Russia recently, and China will deploy electronic warfare drones at a large scale against satellite constellations to degrade Taiwanese communications in a conflict. And this week alone, Russia launched over 1,600 attack drones, 1,200 guided aerial bombs, and nearly 70 missiles of various types at Ukraine. And the German parliament on Friday voted 323 to 272 towards approving a bill that would see the German army increase its current size of 180,000 to 260,000, with a reserve force consisting of another 200,000. And also the German parliament created a pre-conscription system where all men will have to register for conscription and get medical testing starting 2027. And the Swedish Navy reports regular encounters with Russian submarines in the Baltic Sea nearly every week. According to Captain Marko Petkovic, Moscow is continuously reinforcing its presence in the region, and the frequency of these encounters has increased in recent years. Petkovic also warned that if a ceasefire or armistice is reached in Ukraine, Russia is likely to strengthen its military power in the Baltic. So, large number of Russian submarines in the Baltic Sea now. And the Center for Strategic and International Studies, an American bipartisan think tank based in Washington, has issued a rebuke of the Trump administration's national security strategy released on Thursday, stating that the strategy effectively declares war on European politics, Europe's political leaders, and the European Union, adding that it could result in the destruction of the NATO alliance. Wow. And Iran is rapidly reinforcing its missile-based entrances with ultra-high performance concrete to prevent them from collapsing due to enemy airstrikes and ensure continuous missile launches during wartime. So Iran is preparing for another attack from Israel and the U.S. and reinforcing their missile bases with high-performance concrete. And yesterday, the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth spoke at the Reagan Defense Institute. I want to read to you some of the things he said. He said, "We are asking American taxpayers to fund the world's greatest military. We are asking mothers and fathers across America to trust us with their most precious resource, their sons and daughters. We will honor their trust and sacrifice." Wow, so pretty concerning the way Hegseth is talking about, sons and daughters as if they're like a resource, and asking American taxpayers to continue funding the military-industrial complex. He also said the U.S. should not be distracted by democracy building, interventionism, undefined wars, regime change, climate change, woke moralizing, and feckless nation building. He said, we will put our nation's practical, concrete interests first. Well, it seems like they're doing regime change right now in Venezuela, and they're doing an undefined war with these strikes on the cartels. There's no defined end to these strikes on the boats and on the cartels. You know, when does it end? What's the goal? We haven't been told a goal for these strikes. They're just striking as they see fit. And the Biden administration was concerned about Ukraine's borders more than our own. That's what Hegseth said. In less than a year, Trump secured 8 major peace deals, including a historic end to the war in Gaza. Right now, we are working tirelessly to end the tragic war in Ukraine, a war that would have never started if he had been president. He also said Trump can and will take decisive military action as he sees fit to defend our nation's interest. Let no country on earth doubt that for a moment. Now, there's one problem with that. It's called the Constitution. The president does not have the power to just unilaterally attack countries without proper justification or declaration of war or some kind of approval from Congress. It doesn't work that way. He also said we will modernize our nation's nuclear triad and never allow the U.S. to be left vulnerable to nuclear blackmail. We will test nuclear weapons and delivery systems on equal footing with other nations. Okay, so he's saying test nuclear weapons on equal footing with other nations. Now, there's one problem with that. We haven't really done anything to modernize our nuclear triad. We haven't really up-armed any of our missiles. Meanwhile, Russia is up-arming all their missiles since they pulled out of the START treaty. We haven't up-armed our Minutemans. We haven't up-armed our Ohio-class subs, at least not as far as we know, unless they're doing it secretly. And we haven't reconverted the B-1s back to nuclear duty, and we're not arming extra B-52s with nuclear weapons as well. So that's just more BS in my opinion. And he also said, if you are working for a designated terror organization and you bring drugs to this country in a boat, we will find you and we will sink you. He also said, we are not trying to strangle China's growth. We are not trying to dominate or humiliate them, nor are we trying to change the status quo over Taiwan. So just really showing weakness here, okay? Clearly bending over for China. We are not trying to strangle China's growth. We are not trying to dominate or humiliate them. We are not trying to change the status quo over Taiwan. I mean, that is just really, really weak. Okay, really weak. That's something Biden would say, okay, or one of Biden's defense ministers or Obama's defense ministers. And the Pentagon removed Russia from its list of direct threats in the latest national security strategy. And we're hearing that there were a lot of basic typo errors in this national security strategy, which I believe was 29 pages, but they numbered it as 33 pages, all kinds of typographical errors in this thing. And the Kremlin said that they welcome the removal of Russia from the list of U.S. direct threats in the new national security strategy. And Zelensky held a 2-hour phone call with Witkoff and Kushner after 3 days of back-channel peace talks in Miami. The conversation, which included Ukraine's Umerov and Nadov, focused on difficult issues of territory and U.S. security guarantees. Major gaps remain, especially over Russia's demand that Ukraine withdraw from the Donbass. Talks are set to continue this week. And Macron announced a meeting with Zelensky, Starmer, and Merz in London tomorrow. So that's going to be a big meeting there. And Macron said yesterday that Russia is trapped in an escalation strategy and is not seeking peace. Wow. And the U.S. is accelerating weapons deliveries to Ukraine before Christmas, but has privately warned European allies that by 2027, NATO's conventional defense must shift to European leadership as the U.S. is focusing on the Indo-Pacific and cannot fight on two fronts. So interesting. It sounds like the U.S. is preparing for a war with China over Taiwan. And the Pentagon has already finalized plans to transfer Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, but Trump blocked the supply, according to former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine William Taylor. And Moldova requested an emergency electricity assistance from Romania due to the attacks on Ukraine a couple of days ago by Russia. A statement from Moldovan power grid operator Mold Electrica says that in the attack on Ukraine, the region has now experienced a major power outage. So Moldova lost power because of the attack on Ukraine. It sounds like they have an interconnected power grid. And in Ukraine, it will take several weeks to improve the energy situation due to all the Russian strikes on the power plants in the prior days. Power outages are currently in effect for up to 16 hours, according to the CEO of the Ukrainian energy company. So very serious there. And the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, said that EU leaders are preparing for war with Russia by 2030, and the Russian Air Force accidentally dropped a 1,000-pound guided bomb on the Russian city of Belgorod, and the U.S. offered Poland 250 used Stryker armored vehicles for a symbolic $1, with Warsaw preparing to accept once inspections and logistics are complete. The Strykers already stationed in Europe would be transferred to Poland instead of being shipped back to the U.S. after an American force reduction. So the U.S. giving Poland 250 used Strykers for free. And last week, Poland launched their first sovereign military satellite constellation into orbit aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The satellites include 4 micro-class optoelectronic satellites built domestically. More are expected to be launched in the near future. Also in a partnership with France, 2 Airbus optical reconnaissance satellites will be launched. Key gains include high-resolution Earth observation and reconnaissance, including micro-SAR 25-centimeter resolution imagery, penetrating clouds, darkness, and weather for all-weather monitoring of troop movements, infrastructure, and borders. They also deployed 30-centimeter optical imagery for detailed daytime visual surveillance using Polish-developed AI algorithms for rapid data analysis. Combined, they enable real-time intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance without reliance on foreign systems. They also can provide precision targeting and deterrence, acting as the eyes for long-range strikes, integrating with artillery, drones, and missiles such as the HIMARS system, which Poland purchased 500 of those for accurate targeting of threats along the Russia-Belarus border. Wow. And Fox News reported yesterday that the U.S. had transferred a significant number of bunker buster bombs to Israel recently. And Spain's agriculture ministry said a recent swine flu outbreak could have been caused by a lab leak. Okay, so we have all these labs across the world, level 4 labs in Russia, in the U.S., in Europe, in China, that have all these nasty viruses. Many of them are known as chimera viruses. They're basically engineered viruses, like the Ebola pox, which is a combination of Ebola and smallpox. The CDC Center in Atlanta, Georgia, is the last known location where smallpox is stored. And there's also a location in Russia that stores smallpox as well. So this is very, very serious, guys. And a 6.8 magnitude earthquake hit the U.S.-Canada border last night north of Yakutat, Alaska. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. Follow me on Patreon if you want to support the channel. I post abbreviated text summaries of the news on Patreon and also for silver members on YouTube. If you don't have time to watch these videos, you can read the abbreviated text summaries. I just posted one earlier. If you sign up for Patreon, you can see all these videos without advertisements, and I post to Patreon before I post to YouTube. And I might be back later on tonight with a live update, and I hope your weekend is going well. And remember, today is the 84th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attacks. So just keep all the men and women in our military here in the U.S. in your thoughts and prayers. Remember their sacrifices, especially the sacrifices of the greatest generation. If it weren't for them, we would all be speaking German right now. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.